Yes, I am an Apple fanboy, and yes, Samsung invited me to New York to check out the new Galaxy S25 Edge, which I spent about an hour and a half with it taking B-roll, and I actually had this dummy model, this aluminum iPhone 17 Air, in my backpack, but out of respect for Samsung, I didn't take it out and do any B-roll because they said no outside props, so there you go. But basically the S25 Edge is meant to be a competitor to the 17 Air in terms of the feature set and mainly the thinness. So with my perspective on how this feels, here are my thoughts on the new Galaxy S25 Edge and if it can compete, specifically with 5 things that impressed me and 4 things that were actually a little bit disappointing. So let's jump right in. Impressive thing number 1 was, of course, how thin and light it felt. As soon as I picked it up, it felt incredible in the hand, unlike any Android device that I have ever used before. And it still felt really premium because it has a titanium frame, so it felt really nice, but it definitely gives you like a sort of fresh perspective that you haven't felt in a while. Like I took a bunch of B-roll showing off how thin it is compared to my iPhone 16 Pro Max. You can see definitely a lot thinner, way thinner than the S25 Ultra. I even stacked these 2 phones on top of each other, and then I stacked 3 of the S25 Edges. They were barely thicker. I mean, that is how thin it is. Now, the second thing that impressed me was that you get the same exact Snapdragon X Elite chip, so that means no downclocking at all, the same exact performance, which one thing I said to one of the Samsung executives was, dang, this is impressive that you fit everything in this thin chassis with no sacrifice in terms of performance. The Edge also has the same 12 gigs of RAM and the same Gemini AI, which just destroys Apple Intelligence in every way. Like it works incredibly well. Like, I don't know if you remember when we did our AI comparison versus Apple Intelligence, it completely just made a joke out of the iPhone in terms of everything it can do. So with all that said, it's nice to get all the performance in that Edge device. Now, the third thing that impressed me was the camera bump design. I mean, it looks really nice and fresh, where like with the S25, you're basically getting the same design year after year after year. It's just getting quite boring. So I love the new camera bump on the Edge, which it has the 2 cameras, it has the flash, nice and clean. I love the multi-step design where you kind of have like one layer that's the elongated pill shape, and then the camera bumps on top, which makes it seem kind of like less thick, makes it have a really nice design compared to the Air, which you get this massive camera bump, which is literally almost twice as thick as the phone itself. Now, for impressive thing number 4, we have the camera system. The new Edge has a 200 megapixel main camera and a 12 megapixel ultra wide in the same next-gen Pro visual engine that you get from the Ultra that actually led to really killer photo quality when we compared these phones neck and neck. So I think they did a really good job on the camera system because you basically have a full range of cameras to use. You have the ultra wide, then you have the 1X, and then with the 200 megapixel sensor, they're using pixel binning and AI sharpening to give you really good digital zoom. Like I tested it, you have the 1X, 2X, 4X, and 10X options, and they're all really easy to use and surprisingly great quality for not having a real optical telephoto zoom lens, which is really hard to put into a phone that thin. So because of that, it's really capable compared to the iPhone 17 Air, which, as you guys know, 1 camera is what you're getting. That's it. And finally, for number 5, you get a really, really nice 6.7-inch display. It just looks absolutely beautiful. You have the same AMOLED display technology as you get on the other models, same 120 hertz. Also has really, really nice thin bezels on the front. Like I did some comparison shots versus the S25 Ultra's display bezels, and it just looks just as nice. So overall, there are a lot of impressive things about the S25 Edge that really impressed me. However, there were 4 things that disappointed me, so let's start with number 1. Samsung did not put in an anti-reflectivity layer on the Edge's display. Yes, it still has Gorilla Glass Ceramic 2, but no anti-reflective layer, which to me is a missed opportunity because that was pretty much my #1 favorite feature of the S24 and S25 Ultra models. It destroys the iPhone in terms of having nice deep blacks on the display. Looks so much nicer. It's easier to use in the sun, easier to take photos, videos, easier to read content. It's less distracting. And they literally didn't put it in the S25 Edge for one reason. And that one reason is to not kind of overstep the Ultra. And now for #2, we have the battery life, which of course I was only there for an hour and a half, so I didn't get to actually test it. But when we get it in, we will, so definitely subscribe for those videos. Well, the Edge only has a 3,900 milliamp hour battery. And from Samsung's words, they said it's gonna be between the S24 and the S25 in terms of battery life, which is okay, I guess, especially for a thinner phone, but it's definitely not great. Like one of the questions somebody had was about if it has a high density battery, and of course it doesn't. It still has a regular lithium ion battery, so that's kind of like a missed opportunity. Of course, technology takes time, so maybe they didn't have it ready and they wanted to get the phone out before the iPhone 17 Air came out, so they have a similar product to compete with. Now for disappointment #3, we do have 15-watt Qi 2 charging compatibility in the Edge, but no built-in magnets, which kind of is disappointing. It would make it so much nicer to use because then you don't have to put anything on it. But of course, you can always get a MagSafe compatible case and then use all the MagSafe accessories you want and Qi 2 charging, whatever. Or you could do like a MagSafe sticker if you want. But one thing is that I did get to test out a case, and surprisingly, the S25 Edge with a case on was basically the same thickness as the S25 Ultra, which is really special because then you get a case and a thin phone that feels just as thin as the S25 Ultra itself. But back to the MagSafe magnets, of course we know Apple is gonna have MagSafe magnets built into the Air and it's thinner, so it must be some sort of a patent issue that explains the lack of Qi 2 magnets built in. And finally, for disappointment #4, it's actually the pricing, because this thing's a little bit more expensive than I thought it would be. It's $1,099, which is basically $200 less than the S25 Ultra, which of course it is pretty feature packed. However, the iPhone 17 Air is rumored to start at the same price as the 16 Plus, which is basically $900. So that would make the Edge about $200 more expensive than Apple's upcoming Air. But with all of that out of the way, one thing for sure is that the S25 Edge feels like a very fresh phone. Even with its disappointments and everything else, it feels nice and fresh. It looks fresh. The camera bump looks great. It feels super nice in your hands. It's something you have to feel to experience, and that's actually one of the main reasons why people upgrade. But can it beat the iPhone 17 Air? I'm not so sure, but we're gonna have to see later this year because all we have is this dummy model. This might change, everything might change, the battery life might be crap, we don't know. So definitely subscribe if you wanna see those videos later. And by the way, pre-orders for the S25 Edge have just opened up, so I'm gonna have links below, and of course we get a small commission from those links for those who order. So if you're interested, definitely check it out. And that was my take from an Apple fanboy's perspective. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below and check out one of those two videos right there. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.